Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it is time to have a look at another beginner pack and also have a look at some things which I'm pretty sure are going to happen in the future and also expanding on the topic. Basically in this video we're going to have a look at the Italian beginners pack, we're going to look at the other premiums that were added and how they're probably going to form new beginner packs, and also going to talk about the fact that there is a bunch of nations in the game which don't have beginner packs yet or these premiums, so I'm going to give options for what I would like to see as these beginner packs. So first of all, if you haven't been paying attention, it seems like when it comes to the Gaijin.net store, there has been a revamp when it comes to the actual beginner packs that are available for the game. Generally, what you would get is packs which are quite high tier, as you can see in these ones, and then over the most recent period, what they've done is they've added stuff like the US Beginners Pack, the British Beginners Pack, and also other ones such as the German Beginners Pack, and also the Japanese one, and of course the Soviet one, the 5 technically major nations in the game. Now, there was a bit of an issue. The Japanese Beginners Pack was absolutely abysmal. So was the British one, since it was double the price of everything else and didn't really fit in the whole beginners pack idea, and it seems like those ideas are being rectified. So first of all, with the Italian beginners pack, you get the M1441 4740 and also the Reggiani 2001. So if we have a look in the game right now, the Reggiani was added in the last update, the little one, and then the RE 2001 was added in update 1.99, along with some other machines such as the Spitfire Mark II Venture 1 and also a few others. So if we have a look at the M1441 4740, it's very similar to the other medium tanks that we have, apart from this one has a slightly longer barreled gun, the 4740, and also the hull machine gun of the 13.2mm Breda, basically a HMG. It's able to pen up to 24mm, can deal with a lot of tanks at its BR, and also gets quite a nice APBC shell because of the longer barreled gun on the M14 chassis. This is kind of a breakaway from what we've seen from other little like starter vehicles, I suppose you'd call it, because it's slightly different than the others. But then again, we've had stuff like the T126 in the past. I think the whole idea when it comes to this pack here is to give something which is slightly different, but also something which is unique, but still represents the general playstyle of Italy. And that's what I've tried to replicate when looking at other vehicles. So it's going to be $10. I think this is a great beginner's pack. Having these two vehicles in it, they're two very good starter vehicles. They're generally pretty good together, and also at the same time they give you a little bit of something different while keeping it very similar. It also fits really well into a lineup, so perfect for a beginner's pack. Then we had the Regia Marina changelog, and this added the Crusader 2, the Saint, the Chihi 5th Regiment, and the M1441. So we've already gone over the Italian beginner's pack and how the M1441 is slotted into it. And it seems like the reason to add the Crusader and also the Spitfire from before is so the British can actually get a proper actual beginner's pack instead of this one, which is a terrible beginner's pack, if we're quite honest. It's probably the worst out of it because the vehicles make no sense as beginner's vehicles. So for me, I think this is going to get replaced really soon. It just went on offer, so wouldn't be surprised if it disappeared pretty soon. The Italian pack is also available on Steam, by the way, but generally I don't promote Steam sales because of the percentage on top of everything you have to normally pay. And the Japanese pack was easily the worst when it came to the vehicles involved. The Chiha shotgun is completely useless and awful for a beginner because of the fact that it is so bad with its HE shell. You don't, and also its long reload, you don't want to give this to a person who's starting off the game because they'll be like, ooh, this is quite a fun donk gun, and then they'll die 20 times over because they don't have anything useful. And then the A7 HE fighter is, it's reasonable, but it's still nothing out of the bag. and it's also a German fighter in the Japanese tree. It would have been much better just to have a Japanese vehicle. And I think with the addition of the Chi-He 5th Regiment Premium, and also if we have a look at the Japanese tree as well, the Japanese tree also has itself some interesting machines, which I believe some of them were at least added recently. If we want to have a look at it, you have the Ki 27 Otsu Taichirai and also the Ki 44-1 Shoki. Both of these could easily be the beginner vehicles that we talked about before. Probably the Ki 44-1 at 34 is the one which is going to get picked for that role. So yeah, you can see that over time they've been adding these premiums and they're going to be building these packs, or at least I hope so, and this will mean that the beginner's experience will be much better for general people who are starting the game. They get a bit of GE, they get a bit of premium time, they get some Silver Lions, and they also get 2 premium vehicles at rank 2. I think that's pretty good. So obviously, one of the problems with this system is that we don't have them for every nation right now. And I think this system of the beginners pack should be available for each nation. And since I think we have 5 or 6 right now, it's time to go over the other 3 nations which don't have them. So right now, China doesn't have a beginners pack, Sweden doesn't have a beginners pack, and France doesn't have a beginners pack. So therefore, with these 3 nations, I'm going to go through some ideas which I think I would like to personally see. So the first one is China. Now, China were kind of limited because of the fact that if you have a look at the ROC side, the Republic of China, or the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, generally what you have is outsourced stuff. So we're going to be having a look at vehicles which are pretty much just outsourced and therefore not Chinese, but at the same time you can still give them a little bit of a Chinese pizzazz, such as this one. So what is this vehicle? Well, this, in all intents and purposes, is a Hawkeye, if you want to look at it from that point of view. It's known as the Gongchen tank, and this tank was known as the Type 97, the Shinhoto Chiha medium tank. As I said, it's pretty much identical to the Chiha Kai, and there were 2 of them which were given 2 tank regiments, such as the Northeast Special Tank Brigade, and you could put these nice markings on them. You could make it so generally when you have a look at this vehicle, it is unique, it is okay, and it is, unfortunately, in game, the Chiha Kai is in the Chinese tech tree, but it is at rank 1 right now. I would be fine if they wanted to keep with the rank 2 idea for this to go up to rank 2. Just as a premium, it would be slightly different from the obvious vehicle which we see, but at the same time, it would make it, as I said, in unison with everything else. It would also mean that you could put that $9.99 price tag on it. So yeah, a simple tank, and unfortunately there's not a lot of native Chinese designs at this point, unless you go like pre-World War II, and even then you are very limited because they're just basically Lend-Leased American vehicles. So yeah, why not show the PLA in, a premium light instead of just having some American vehicles? But on the other side of things, when it comes to the Lend-Lease point of view and also the game point of view, we already had the Tomahawk, which was the kind of starter or beginner premium for the Chinese. Why not get another kind of vehicle which is like the Tomahawk, but instead it's a Kitty Hawk based off this one. This is the Tomahawk Mark II-B. It was used in British service, and it's technically not the one that I'm actually advocating for. Instead, I'm advocating for the P40 Bee, which is incredibly similar to this vehicle. The P40 Bee first flew in November 1941, and it was quickly sent to the Royal Air Force under Lend-Lease, and the original models lacked self-sealing fuel tanks and carried 2 50 caliber cowl-mounted machine guns and 2 30 caliber guns in the wings. The P40 Bee was improved eventually with self-sealing fuel tanks and pilot armor and then 2 extra wing guns, but the RAF decided that the Tomahawks would be armed with 6 .303 caliber machine guns. The B and C model Tomahawks served with the RAF in North Africa in 1941-42, and it was quickly discovered that the aircraft was inferior to the German Bf-109 except at low altitude, so therefore the British moved on to other deliveries, such as the P-40D and the P-40E. So, well, how does this relate to China, you may be asking? Well, with the signing of the Lend-Lease Act, the Chinese Commissioner of Aviation, TV Song, approached the US to procure aircraft for the Chinese Air Force. There was a number of P-40 Bees which were available, since the British didn't want them, and they were sold to a Chinese company which was known as Camco. They were shipped, crated P-40 Bees to Rangoon, Burma, and they were assembled there. And in a parallel move, Camco hired retired Navy and Army officers to travel to US naval air stations and army fields to recruit pilots, promising better pay than the US, the military offered, along with getting into the war that America at the time resisted entering. So in 1937, Claire Chennault, a retired U.S. Army captain, had been hired by the nationalist government to train Chinese pilots, then flying both Russian and also Italian aircraft far inferior to the Japanese ones, and this formed the AVG. Chennault had new P-40 aircraft and a host of American recruits. So what is the AVG? Well, the AVG is more commonly known as, well, technically the Flying Tigers because of the fact that they had the wonderful teeth on their plane eventually, which can be seen in this one. This is a P40B, which was used by what are colloquially known as the Flying Tigers, or the AVGs, and the reason why they put the teeth on the aircraft of the P40Bs is because they saw this picture of a Tomahawk Mark IIB, which had the actual teeth on it, and they thought it looked pretty cool, so they copied it. And I don't know what's going on in this picture, because there's just a dude sat on the wing as well, if you can see that, which is kind of funny. But overall, you know, we have the P40E, we have the Tomahawk. Why not have a P40B in name there, which would have access to either 303s or 50 cals, maybe 250 cals and 4 303s, and have that as the beginner premium for the Chinese. I think that would work pretty well. If I was being honest, I think it would work awesome. The next nation we're having a look at is France, and the reason why we have to look at France is because, well, they don't have any beginner vehicles either, and we're going to start off with the planes. What we're going to pick is the MS-411. So I want this to be similar to what they already have at Rank 2, because if you have a look at Rank 2 France, what they have access to is not some very good planes. They have the MS-406, the MS-410, but the VG-33C1 is actually really good. And I thought, okay, well, we need something which is going to be similar to what is already in the tree. So we can either pick a Potez 631, which has specific squadron markings on it, which was used during the Battle of France, or what we could do is we could have an MS-406, which was just slightly upgraded. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a picture of this, but I bet you any money it would look exactly like an MS-406, and what we're looking at is the MS-411. Now, the MS-411 was an aircraft which was converted from an MS-406, and they just put a beefier engine in it. They put the Hispano-Suiza 12Y45 engine in it. This gave it 1,000 horsepower. The standard 406 only had an engine with 860 horsepower, so therefore you're getting much more beefy, much more 140 horsepower on top of the original engine. There was also a 412 with an even beefier engine, but it was never actually finished. So I want to keep on the 411 train and put that into the game as the beginner premium. It would be very similar to the 406, just a little bit more beefier. I don't think it would have to change its BR, and if, you know, people wouldn't be happy with that, as I said, pick a Potez, because the Potez could be multi-role. You could use it in ground realistic a little bit better instead of just an air realistic fighter. Now, when it comes to the tanks for France, it's a little bit all over the place, which is why you can see I've just gone straight to the Swedish when it comes to this stuff. So if we have a look at the army, which is there for France, there isn't a ton of options at rank 2 which actually exist. You know, you could put in a standard B1, but the problem with the standard B1 is it had an absolutely terrible gun as the 47, so that wouldn't really be a rank 2 vehicle. It also had a lot less armor. It only had about 40mm, so what you could either do is you could have a B1 BIS, which has access to some form of camouflage, maybe a squadron camo, or you could just use the B1 Tur if you wanted as a beginner's vehicle. The B1 Tur is a very tough machine. It's a lot of fun, and I think it would work pretty well after its BR increase now as a beginner's vehicle. So the fact that they brought it back as a GE premium, it would fit all of the other ones that we've seen. If you really wanted to, you could just have an M3A3 Stuart with special squadron markings, or a Crusader Mark II. Both of these, or at least the Crusader Mark II, is already here and is probably going to be one of these beginner vehicles, the Saint version. And then the US, for their beginner vehicle, they already have a Stuart anyway. So if you wanted to do that, I mean, all three of these vehicles right here could easily be beginner premiums, or just throw in the B1 Tur, and I think it would be fine. The problem with French vehicles which aren't in the game, all of them would be rank 1, and all of them would be very similar to stuff like the D2 and the S35, and they're not great starter beginner vehicles, just because of the fact that they would be rank 1 and they would be around 1.0. We're looking at something like, one of the criteria for me at least, for something like this was between 2.0 and 3.0, because that's what we see from the other beginner vehicles which make the most sense. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. The next one is obviously Sweden. So after having a look at France and having a look at China, Sweden is a little bit more complicated, but there are some really nice options. We're going to have to go on the higher end when it comes to this stuff, because the Largo 1 is already in game, which would have actually been my personal pick for this, and also they have the M42EH in game, which is of course the Largo 4. So we have pretty much two options. You can either go for the Largo 2, or you can go for the Largo 3. And the major difference between these and something like the Stritzwagen M42, which is what you see in front of you, is the fact that they had worse engines. The Largo 2 had two Scania Vebis L603 engines with a ZF electromagnetic gearbox, and then the Largo 3 had the same engines, but it had an Atlas diesel hydraulic gearbox. So if you wanted to put one of them in the tree, and then you put one of them as a premium, and it would be the beginner premium, I think that would be fine. It would probably be around 2.7 BR, so as I said, on the higher end of the list, but it would still be ranked 2, it would still fit pretty well when it came to the overall theme that I'm going for here when it comes to these beginner vehicles. And also, it wouldn't be too hard to model. The fact is, all you would really have to do is be able to all you would have to do is be able to model the engines differently and make them slightly weaker. Then, once again, for Sweden, we have a bit of a problem. So, Sweden, when it came to their plane design, they really hunkered down on a few of them, and the J-22s were definitely one of those which they hunkered down on. And this is a unique J-22A which saw service. This was actually put in service in 1945, and it's the first squadron F9 wing at Gothenburg. Now, as you can see from this is a wonderful article from, as you can see, Anton Alm, and he's talking about the different camouflages that are available for different J-22s, but what you find is the majority of these are from the J-22B. Now, the J-22B is a rank 3 machine, and because of how the Swedish tech tree is set up, I would much rather pick a J-22A, just because of its BR, and also the fact that it's a rank 2, keeping in with the same theme as everything else. So this would be the one that we go for. It would just be a specific skinned premium, just like the Key-44 we have, or just like the Spitfire that we have, and it would literally just have the Devil Dude and the M on the back of it. So that would be my pick when it comes to the Swedish beginner vehicles, and I think these packs would be worth it. The Chinese one is slightly weak in the tank department, but at the same time it's very strong in the air department. When it comes to the Swedish one, it's strong overall, especially if, you know, that APDS round is allowed in. And when it comes to the French one, The French one is not very strong, but it represents their vehicles well, which is what, overall you want from a beginner's pack. It gives you a feel of what you're going to experience in the tree. So, as I said, check out the Italian pack. Look for more news when it comes to these other packs being upgraded for the Japanese and the British, and also, if you have any ideas of what you would like to see in beginners packs for these nations, please drop them in the comments, because I'd love to have a read. As always, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Battling Bacon, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Conte Baraka, Daniel Stanton, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, Trigger Hippie, Universe, Eugens Terry, and also I'm Devilish and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.